All right, guys. I know last time the lesson was a little hard. All those word problems are pretty exhausting. Today is actually your review lesson. So I'm actually going to tell you some directions first, but your directions are basically to actually not watch this video yet. I actually want you to open up to the review pages in your SAB. Again, I'm always off, I think possibly by a page or two, but I think you're actually supposed to be on page 211, if I am correct. And page 211 is going to be the start of your review. It should say right at the top, Unit 6 Review/Test, and it should look like this page right here at the top. And you're going to do the front and the back of that page. So I'm going to simply give you the answers. So I want you to get the practice. So you should try to do these on your own. Your assignment today is to pause this video and do these 2 pages, okay? So, hopefully you're back after doing all of that work, and if not, trust me, I have an assignment you can work on, but I would prefer that you have practiced these on your own. But I'm going to dive right in and give you some answers, okay? So this first one says, choose the best term, just like normal, we do those vocab. It says, a blank shows the structure of the information. I'm not super worried if you didn't get these, but that one's supposed to be a situation equation. And then this one says, a blank shows the operation that can be used to solve the problem, and that's going to be a solution equation. So your solution equation is one where you can actually solve it. The situation is where you might need more, but you at least understand what it is you're trying to solve, okay? Now getting into 3 and 4. Number 3 says, explain how you can predict the size of the product for the multiplication. And this is what we were talking about with scaling. If you are multiplying something less than 1, your number is actually going to shrink. This is why I like to make your lives miserable, and so do all mathematicians. If you multiply something that is a whole number by a whole number, your number ends up getting larger than any of these 2 numbers. But if I multiply something by less than 1, a fraction, for example, this answer is going to be less than 1. It's going to be 0.4. Same thing is true of fractions. If I multiply something by, 2 times 1.5, my answer is going to end up being larger than, let's see, 2 times 1.5 would actually be 3. My gosh, I can't even add today. My answer would be 3, which is greater than either of those 2 numbers. But if I were to multiply something by just a half, which is less than 1, I would have something that's less than this original number. So when you multiply by things that are less than 1, your answer ends up shrinking. I'm going to just read to you the answer on this one. My answer key says 0.25 is less than 1, and 50 is greater than 1, so the product will be less than 50, but greater than 25. But I think it's also totally fine to say something like, if you multiply by something less than 1, your answer is going to be smaller than what you multiplied by. So for this next problem, number 4, it wants you to write a word problem for 3/4 times a half. And I want you to think about what that could actually mean. I like to think about this one as like a pan of brownies or something like that. So let's say that I had 3/4 of a pan of brownies. I'll just go ahead and make it look like that. And I had 3/4 of those, right? So 3/4 is what was left over in the pan, and my mom said I could have half of what was left over. Well, that means I would actually need to find half of the original container that was, not container, but the half of the entire pan of brownies that it started with. So if I was going to get to have half of those, that would be this half right here. So that's going to be a numerator of 3, and basically I've now turned this into eighths. So a word problem could be something along the lines of, it says, 3/4 of the students in the class are members of a sports team, and I'm not going to write completely because that'll just waste our time. So 3/4 of class are on a sports team, okay? And then it says, of these students, half are members of the soccer team. So of this entire team, half are on soccer. So we want to know what fraction of the class is on sports team, and we would solve it just like that problem asked. We would do 3/4 times 1/2, which is just 3/8. Okay? All right, let's look at number 5. So it wants you to tell me whether or not your answer is reasonable. So this one says, solve the problem, explain how you know your answer is reasonable. So we're going to solve first We're going to with an equation, and then we'll also estimate to see how we did. So this one says, in a school gymnasium, 340 students were seated for an assembly in 17 equal rows. How many students were seated in each row? Well, this to me seems like a division problem. 340 students divided into rows of 17 is going to tell us how many per row. So I'll label that with an R. And then I'm going to come off to the side here and actually divide this. I know it's a double-digit number, but hopefully you could see actually that this is just going to be two groups of 17, which will equal 34 exactly. So that means that 17 went into 34 twice, and then 17 went into 0 times. So R here would equal 20 students per row. Well, now actually as a estimate on this one, rather than dividing, I'm actually going to multiply as my estimate on this one. I'm going to leave 20 the same, and I'm going to round 17 up to 20. And what's 20 times 20? It's 400, which I think is close enough to 340. So I think I'm good to go. I would say that that is reasonable. Okay, numbers 6 and 7 want you to write an equation and then solve. Again, we are doing the dreaded word problems, which are not the most fun, but are super, super important because they're more like real world. So Jacqueline is mailing 2 boxes to a friend. It says the first box weighs 1 3/4 of a pound. The total weight of the boxes is 4 3/8 of a pound. So what's the weight of the second box? So we are trying to find the weight of this second box, and it's going to look like that. That's going to be our equation. 1 3/4 is the first box. We're going to add some mystery number to equal 4 3/8. But to actually solve this one, we are going to subtract 1 3/4. Now, the reason I'm hesitating and I don't want to write 3/4 is I'm actually going to change it to something that's over 8ths, so I can go ahead and just solve this problem. I already have my first hiccup. I can't do 3/8 minus 6/8, so I'm going to borrow from my neighbor and make this 11. Ooh, that's supposed to be an equal sign. So 11/8 minus 6/8 is 5/8. And then 3 minus 1 is 2. So that tells me the weight of the second box is 2 5/8. Okay, again, very hard just because they're long. It's word problems. I know they're not the best, okay? Number 7 is a theater has 25 seats in each row. When the theater is full, it holds 875 people. So how many rows of seats are there? That's pretty similar to the one we just did a second ago. But this is going to be basically 875 people being split up into groups of 25. And that will tell us, what does it want us to do? We'll do R for rows of seats again. You could have done this differently. You could say 25 times R equals 875. Both will totally work fine for this problem. But I'm going to come off to the side and I'm going to go ahead and solve. And counting by 25s is like quarters, so this one's not going to be too hard. 25 will go into 87 3 times because I know that 3/4 is 75 cents. So I'm going to now subtract 75. 7 minus 5 is 2, and 8 minus 7 is 1. And now I can bring down that 5. And then 25 into 125, again, I'm going to count by quarters. So 25, 50, 75, $1, $1.25. That would have been 5/4. So 5 times 25 is 125, and now I'm done. So R for this problem would equal 35 rows. Okay? Okay, one more page. Again, hopefully you did these on your own. If not, we've got a test tomorrow, so hopefully you're feeling okay. And I'm going to solve these final 3, okay? So number 8 says, to prepare for a final exam, Corrine studied for 2.5 hours. Levon studied for 2/3 as long as Corrine. Well, just a heads up first before I even solve this, I can tell that Levon studied less than, because he's only studying 2/3 as much, which is going to be less than that. So that actually means that my problem here that I'm going to try to solve is 2.5 times 2/3, okay? So I'm going to change this first to an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So this is really going to be 5/2 times 2/3, okay? My guess is you guys probably went ahead and multiplied across. I really hope you remembered that you can do, cross cancel before you start. So 2 and 2 can both be divided by 2 to equal 1. So that means then that your answer is going to be 5/3. And I know that 3 goes into 5 one time, and that would leave me 2/3 left over. So that means Lavon studied for 1 2/3 hours. Okay. Number 9 tells me that I got tripped up because I looked at my answer key for number 8, and it told me 1 hour and 40 minutes, which got me tripped up. But really, that's true. 2/3 of an hour would be 40 minutes. So we're still correct. All right. Number 9, an investor purchased 75 shares. Oh, not another stock problem. If you guys are playing Animal Crossing, hopefully you're selling turnips and you understand this problem better. It says an investor purchased 75 shares of stock at $42.80 per share. So that's going to be 75 times 42. Oops. Whoa, that was weird. 42.8. Okay. And then it says 6 months later, he sold the shares for $47.15 per share. So that would be 75 shares times 47.15. And then it says the $20 stockbroker fee will not be charged for this sale. Calculate the total profit or loss of this transaction. Well, this one's weird. They're basically telling you that this $20 fee is not charged, so we don't need it. That's just in our way. So we would have ended up doing 75 times 47.15, and then we would have subtracted what 75 times 42.8 is, and in the interest of time, because I'm a little worried about it, I would have come up with a profit of $326.25. So I really hope that you listened when I told you, or when I typed the comment into the YouTube comment box, but number 10 is really, really tricky and too hard for me to explain not in a classroom with you guys, because I would obviously, I think I could probably spend 15 minutes just describing this problem to you. It was a challenge, so if you did it, or maybe if like one of your parents really felt strongly about helping you out, maybe you would have seen that it was actually $7,500 for the 8 friends, and then $15,000 for the other 2 friends, but this is not one that I needed you to do, not one that I would like to spend our precious time, doing together, because it's way too long. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom over here because I want to show you your plan. If you did not do this assignment with me today, like I asked, when I asked you to pause and do them on your own, then you need to do a little bit more practice. It basically says, if you didn't do the work before watching the video, go back through Unit 6 to help you prepare. Maybe go back and finish any homework and remembering pages you didn't do. Maybe rework any word problems that you didn't get right the first time. But basically, what's going to come next is that you have a math test that I attached to your weekly plan that you need to do. But I actually don't think that you should do it all in one day. I think you're going to feel a little overwhelmed. But you guys are in charge of your schedule and how you're doing things. So you can do whatever you like. It is 10-question test. Some might be multiple choice. Like I said, I haven't finished, before I did the video, I haven't finished, putting the test together yet. So your job is to solve it, and then there are also directions of how to submit it. But think of that as like the 3rd day of math for this week. So it's not something that you have to go do right now. Instead, you could spend some time practicing, or if you already did the practice with us today, you are done with math for today, and tomorrow your assignment will be to do that math test, okay? Log into Zoom if you're going to need some help. I would love to help you out. I'm not going to explain number 15 to you guys, though, or number 10, I guess it was, because honestly, it will just take a really long time, and there's other things that's definitely just a challenge problem, okay? So don't worry too much about that one. Yeah, log into Zoom if you need it. Thanks, guys.